it's part of it's in your mind. How do you deploy it? It's not. I can't tell you use AI. You have to figure out how you're going to use it. Sit down and think about it. Call friends at other companies. So most of them actually work, but I say some are maybe disappointing. There's no example we spent $400 million and it was a complete waste of money. There's none of that. And even if it was part of just the learnings of getting something done.
So you're recommending to a lot of companies, you think it's time to be investing in it?
Absolutely.
Time to go.
You should be using it. It should be, when we meet as for business reviews, every business review at a detailed level, what are you doing in technology? What are you doing in AI? What are the projects? How are you improving it? We're sending people to a master class so the management team say, my God, I didn't know it could do that for me. I didn't know it could read 100,000 documents. I didn't know it can correlate this database with that database and tell me patterns that I can't possibly see, which is how we're picking up a lot of fraud. It's pattern recognition, the part of some of the AI machines that human beings can't pick up. So, yeah, use it, get good at it, make it part of your tool set, your weapon set, and you'll learn. It'll get better all the time. Your management will get better, and you should do it. In any business.
And did you say you're sending your executives and your team to a master class in AI? Is that how are you training your teams in it?
We had a request from our own people. So I said we have 150,000 people using large language models on inside data. And remember, the inside data, private data, is huge, and it's not in the web. And therefore, all the data is being used right. That's not completely true. And we use data both inside and outside. But a lot of people are saying, I want to learn. I want to know how to use it. How do you think about it? When I sit down as a management team, so our HR people did a great job. They formed a master class. Some was at headquarters. I think some was MIT. Some were inside people. Some were outside people. We just had the first one, and I haven't gotten a report back. I always tell people, when you do something like that, people say, this is great. This is wonderful. I want to know if 6 months later they say it was useful. And so we're going to find out. But I'm sure it had some benefit.
Awesome. Last question on AI. So it's the CapEx spending on it, especially from tech companies, is tremendous. AI companies, I've read a stat, have accounted for 80% of gains of U.S. stocks in 2025. And companies investing hundreds of billions in AI accounts for an estimated 40% of U.S. GDP growth this year. Does that concern you as you look at the markets? What kind of a bubble are we talking about? And also the secular nature of the investments going into these AI companies, AMD into OpenAI, back into the chips, things like that.
It's 40% of the increase in GDP, which I forgot was 2.5%. So it was a big increase in CapEx. And remember that CapEx is roads and cement and steel and servers and connectors. It's a million different things going on. Now, I wouldn't say I'm concerned. And like I said, you can't look at AI as a bubble, though some of these things may be in the bubble. In total, it will probably pay off. Some of those projects won't get done the way they were announced. Some of them won't get the power they need. And when you look at how they're done, I call it project finance. If JP Morgan's leasing a building from you, that's a pretty good credit. If you are relying on a company that doesn't have revenues to pay you for your lease, that's not the same thing. Or, who's responsible for finishing the building? Is there insurance on it? What if the machines don't work? What if the chips fail? Who's taking all these risks? And so you got to go literally project by project. And even on that investment scheme, it's not abnormal to have vendor finance, which is what you see about buy part of your company. You get the cash, I'll finance your purchase. You got to go one by one to say, is it pushing the bubble, or is it real? Is it, they're really going to develop stuff that'll have productive capability to pay off on the investment? Like I said, in total, I think they probably will, but one by one, I don't know.
So I want to jump ahead to just a little bit of a near-term look at the market to 2026. The Trump administration has done a lot this year. The tariffs. First off, the first thing I want to actually ask you is, on April 2nd, when the Liberation Day tariffs dropped, what was your day like? Tell me that 24-hour day in the life of Jamie Dimon.
I do remember it. I remember the market going down considerably, and then for a couple of days after, that number caught people by surprise. And I think appropriately the administration backed off of it and assigned people to go country by country to come up with these agreements in principle, which are agreements in principle. And the market came way, I've got 15% or something like that, and then mostly recovered once it seemed more rational. And I think you've seen that pattern exhibit itself. And that's how they negotiate, out here, and we'll move here, see how you're moving, what works, what doesn't work. And in some ways it's good. It's wrong for people to say it's not good. To respond to legitimate complaints about what you're doing is a good thing to do. And to make adjustments is appropriate, which they've said they're going to do in India. They've said they're going to do in China. The market went down 1,000 points, when the minor trade war happened. And so that's the right thing to do. But they're still out there. These are our allies and friends, and we should finish these things and put them in place. I think they're getting better at it. They're very complicated. I'm not sure when they started, they completely are complicated. In fact, someone from the government told me that, you need hundreds of people to negotiate one deal. I think the whole trade department has 450, and there were 100 of these. So, it takes a little bit of time to work through.
I assume you're
and the really important thing to me, by the way, we need to keep the Western world together economically. And while there are legitimate trade complaints, both about national security, we made some failures, and unfair trade, I hope at the end of the day that we are embracing our allies and our non-allies. India is not an ally of ours, but I think we should embrace them. They're a natural ally. All we have to do is reach out our hand. Trade is part of that. But I've also been told that hopefully that'll be resolved soon too.
Well, that gets into the bigger geopolitical reordering that's happening around these tariffs. And yes, they've come down from that April 2nd day, for the most part, pretty much everywhere. But it is creating ripple effects. Yes, we're getting some nice revenue back into the country, but also other countries are turning to each other for help. And if you look at China, I wonder, do you think we've overplayed our hand there a little bit? They corner the market on rare earth. They have turned to rest of the world to make up some of the business loss from the U.S. in these trade talks. So what's happening there?
I think it's very complicated. This is a multiplayer, multi-year game. And so initial responses, you're absolutely right. Negotiating a settlement here does not mean you don't do things going forward. I think you have seen people do that. And there are layers of these things where you can move some business over here, but you can't move it all. You can avoid some tariffs over there. It's complicated. And with China, it's the most complicated. They're the biggest trading partner with everyone in the world. In the rare earths, yeah, they've kind of cornered it, but the rare earths everywhere. They're not rare. This is the processing, mining, and dirty. We basically outsource dirty stuff to other countries is what this was. And we should be able to fix that. So, but they've also, when they do something like that, they're also telling the world they're willing to do something like that. And so, this goes a little bit of both ways. I would be in favor of deep engagement with China where there are legitimate issues, and there are some about how they subsidize industries, and they should be very specific. And then anything about national security to me has got nothing to do with China. It's got to do with we need to make sure that things are done here or in friendly places with secure supply chains that we need for our national security, our defense, and our safety. And that's a whole different issue that it should be unilateral. That's not a negotiation.
So stepping back into the strategy of what the Trump administration seems to be doing in some ways is they're almost operating the American government like it's a business in need of a turnaround. We have this ballooning deficit, and some things have been helpful in reducing that. Some things are not, like the one big beautiful bill. But it seems like if you listen to Howard Lutnick speaking, he's talking about things like, well, revenue is coming in from tariffs, and why are we giving handouts to like Harvard grants and to Intel? We should be taking equity and getting upside potential for that. That's sort of how a venture capitalist would think, and that's not been done before in our government. Is this a good idea or not?
We had a lot in there.
Yes. Every topic.
I think that government should be pro-business and pro-growth, and I think that's very good. I think the tariffs, we think it's going to collect at a run rate of about $400 billion a year, somewhat offset by the big, beautiful bill that will be more stimulus, and that a lot of that's front-ended. So, and I think deregulation, I should say smart regulation is a good idea. And everyone knows it is crippling to people. It's redundant. It slows people down. You can't move. It's hard to get licenses. It's hard to get permitting. It affects affordable housing. Of course, they're right to be looking at that. And then, of course, when you say business, government isn't business, but they should have the same. And I've been right about this for years. You give me your money for schools or whatever I do. I owe you. You gave me this. We said we'd do this. Here's the outcome. Here's the cost per person. Here's how many people we covered. Here's how many people got jobs. Here's how many people, and they don't do that. So, to apply certain disciplines to government, absolutely. And until we do it, I would say, I'm going to guess, there's not one person in this room, even the most liberal Democrat in the room, who would say the government is well run and efficient. Okay?